record.
And Mama Evelyn, I know you had your hand up the last time, so I'm not going to forget. You look glowingly beautiful today, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just wait for Lottie to come back on, which I'm loving. I don't know. I know I had a fascination with burlesque because I knew something was going on because my grandmother had those fancy gowns with the night, not that fancy, but still, you know, the long lace with the lace at the top all the way long with the matching satin, yeah, you know, satin robe and everything. It's like, oh, okay, there's a little something to this. Like, okay. And there is a sister here. If I'm not mistaken, what's her name? Oh God, I can't remember her name, but she owns the bookstore. She owns the black bookstore over there off of Oakland.
Ramona?
Huh?
Ramona?
Not Ramona. Yeah, Ramona. I think I'm thinking Ramona. That's the daughter. She does a vintage clothing. She does, and I'm watching her on TikTok. I'm like, oh my God, okay. She does the vintage clothing. And that's something interesting to get into. I don't know. I like dressing up. It's like,
Okay, here she comes.
Okay. I'm just posing a quick question. When's the last time you guys dressed up? Like really dressed up for the sake of just dressing up? Or playing dress up?
Good question.
It's been a while. It's truly been a while.
Long time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. So I think the question that I had posed before is, oh yeah, how did you get into how did you get into burlesque?
Ooh. There's always a long answer to the question. And we have time. So the long answer is I think my first exposure to burlesque was in a weird, it wasn't really in a weird way. Richard Pryor did an a biopic about himself. And he chronicled like his time working, you know, vaudeville circuits and how he got into it. And one of the people who helped Richard Pryor get into the comedy and the vaudeville burlesque scene was a burlesque performer. And so in his movie, his biopic, he showcased this burlesque performer. And I'm like maybe a 8 or 9-year-old kid. And I was like, oh my God, she's so glamorous. Ah. I know it is, but I want to do that. That looks like that's so much fun. And so then fast forward years, you know, you live your life, you do some things, you have a whole thing that you do, you go to college, you dance in the band, like you do all of the things. You continue doing the things that you do. And then years later, I had a friend whose coworker was like, oh, we do burlesque. You should come to a show. And I was like, I don't know what burlesque is, but it's, you know, Friday night, let's go. And so we all kind of loaded up together and went to this club. And when we got there and I saw what was happening, and I was like, oh, that's the thing. Like, it was like a core memory, like unlocked. It was like, that's when I was 9 years old. I wanted to do that. And they're doing that. And that people can do that. I can do that. This is a thing. I can do that. Oh my God. And then, you know, as I was watching the performances, I saw movements that were very familiar to me. And I was like, oh, I know this because we used to do this in our slow routine with the band. And I was like, look at them doing what these white girls know about this Black college movements. And I said, oh, well, because I recognized the movements. I was like, oh, so this is us. Sort of
Mhm.
like when you meet somebody that's kind of racially ambiguous, but you kind of look at them and you can clock them like, oh, this, you're one of us. Okay, got you. So like those movements were very us. And I said, oh, well then this is what I need to be doing. And so I went to more shows, went to more shows, went to all of their shows, was a regular at their shows, and was like, hey, listen, I want to do this. And they were like, oh yeah, sure, we're gonna get to you, you know, da, 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 da. And I was like, no, for real, like I'm not just fangirling out, I'm legit. I legitimately want to do this. And about another 6 months passed, and I'd reached the point where I was like, listen, ladies, listen, Linda, listen to me. I finished my master's degree in December. I have a lot of time on my hands and disposable income. So let's figure this out, because I'm either going to continue, I'm going to take 2 more lessons at this pole club, at this pole fitness studio, and I'm going to do some pole dancing, you know, at the fitness studio, and most likely become a pole instructor, because that's kind of what you do at this part of your life. You're like, oh yeah, I'll just teach people to do the thing. I'll learn how to do it, and then I can teach people. Or I'm going to do burlesque. So do you want this money? Is kind of what it kind of boiled down to. And they were like, give us, you know, 3 weeks. I was like, all right, great, 3 weeks. I got y'all 3 weeks. Please stop stringing me along. But they were waiting. They were trying to get themselves together so they could open up their burlesque institute. And so then they launched their institute. I was like, great, send me the information. Here's the PayPal, $100. Thank you. Drive around to the second window. I'm ready to go. And so they had a series of like random kind of drop-in classes. And so I took everything that they had to offer, I took it. And then they kind of flipped the session again. And I was like, all right, well, I'll take whatever you got left. And I took everything they had left. And then they were like, oh, we're ready for our student recital. And I was like, me too. And so I did my, you know, my peer review, you know, act, got feedback on it, made my adjustments, and we had our recital April 15th, 2011.
Awesome.
And I haven't stopped performing since then. It's what I do.
So what is Mama
Evelyn.
Evelyn had a question, then I'll ask.
Well, not a question so much as an observation of how we've been erased out of things, because as an artist, you see the glamorous vintage photos of white folks. I said, where are we? We were there. And then I regret not buying this bundle at this flea market of vintage Black photos of us picnicking, you know, going to the beach. Same thing you see white people do. And then I equate your statement with the burlesque as far as the audience and the space that you're in, to when African dance was introduced to my daughter's school when she went to a private school. And there was one teacher who was a former nun who had a problem with the movements. What problem? This is African dance. And so there is a difference between African dance and the intention around it and going to the club twerking. There's a difference. But they're the same movements, but it all depends on the intention. So I just wanted to say that, because yeah, they keep erasing us in the art world. You know, what is his name? Tim Holtz has just came out. He had these vintage photos, vintage. Where are the Black people? So I finally found a package that had Black people. I'm sorry, I took the white people out and they went to the Goodwill. I kept the Black people. I'm like, you know, Where are we in that? I mean,
It's hard. Luckily, we do have some amazing resources though, because we were lucky enough to have Jet and Hue magazines.
mm,
That is where a lot of our Black burlesque history has been cataloged. So if you go through the old Jet, the Jets from the 50s and the 60s, their features were burlesque performers.
mm,
Then as we moved up, then it became like, as burlesque was started to begin to get phased out in like the 70s, it went from the, burlesque, the shake dancer to the beauty of the week. But before we had the beauty of the week, we had our shake dancer feature. So if you like going back there, knowing where to look, being able to find, and being able to find those resources are important. Again, and wherever there are, whatever humans are doing at the time, in any given time in history, Black people are there too. I was joking with someone, we were talking about this, but I was like, again, when we talk about, history, people act as if Black people were invented for slavery. Then we became extinct after slavery. And then we were reinvented in the 50s to make life difficult for white people with integration. And now we're kind of here. And I'm like, no, we were here the whole time. The whole time we were here. But that idea that we just, we were invented in the 50s, so that white people could be better humans is annoying. Especially again, as we look at, the King holiday, you would think that the reason that King existed was so that white people could be better, to help white people become more human. Like, no, we were humans living in this space. We have been fighting for our own humanity this entire time. If white people got a benefit from seeing the human aspects or the humanity of Dr. Martin Luther King, awesome, good for them. But it's always been about our humanity and us being human and our struggle for, again, basic humanity. And that's really, that's a key. And to kind of go back on the club, the African dance and the club twerking, it's not even about, for that point, it's not about the intention, it's about the gaze.
The gaze.
So the same way that I feel when I have my Congolese music going at the house and I am doing my hip rolls and I am releasing that, that energy from my root chakra, it feels good. When I'm at the club and those same or similar African beats are infused into modern music that touch and reach into that part of my soul that wants to release that root chakra, it's still the same. The difference is the gaze. So when I do it at home for myself, I am joyous and enjoying it. When I go to the club and I'm doing the same thing and I'm still joyous and joyful, now because someone else is seeing that joy, they feel that joy is sexual and sexualized for them. My joy is my joy.
Right.
My joy and moving that part of my body is mine. But because someone else is looking at it, they've decided that it's sexual and it's for them. And that I'm doing this to entice them. No, I'm doing this because I've had a long day. I've had a long week at work. I've had a long day at work. Oh my God. And this tension is built up right here in this part of my spine. And I need to get that out. And this music that taps into those African beats, those Congo beats, those Cuban beats, those beats, invigorates that part of my body.
Yes.
It just happens that while I'm doing, now I'm doing it, and now she out here twerking for the people. No, I'm twerking for myself. You happen to be here and you happen to see it, but that joy that I have, that's mine.
Mhm.
And if you find joy in what I do, that's great. But my joy is not for you.
That's right. I do want to piggyback on what you said, because as a dancer, I did for years. I did a dance, learned the moves of a Afro-Cuban dance here in Detroit, and there are certain movements that was so I didn't realize was even historical. I was like, wait a minute, hold up. There's a move where you go down with the drum, and we're dancing to drumming. You know what I'm saying? We're dancing to drum. You go down slowly, and you slowly bring up that that skirt up really, really slowly up the leg to the beat of the drum, and the drummers are actually following you as to what you do. And then I'm just in there like, wait a minute, this is going a little bit deeper than just the burlesque aspects of it. A lot, the African moves, like you said, I'm like, oh, okay. And you're right. It's not even in the doing a move like that in the African dance class is not sexual. It's not sexualized. I mean, it is, but it isn't. You know what I'm saying? And I get what you're saying, being in the different genres that I'm into. It's like you get to see, it's like you said, it's self-expression. It's, energetic release. It's spiritual. You know what I'm saying? It's all of this. And none of it is what's being perceived from whoever's in there watching it. Juanita, you have a question?
Yes,
Juanita,
yes,
you go.
yes, I do. Thank you so much, ladies, for bringing this to us and really enlightening us on the sacred essence of burlesque. I never knew. And by the way, Lottie, Rosita, you know who I'm talking about when I say Rosita, right?
Yes.
That's my cousin.
That is she is so, don't make me cry. She is so very dear to me.
I know. And I want to
She
thank
is
you.
my heart.
I want to thank you for all that you and the community do for her. I know she's told me firsthand about the furnace, and I won't even start that part of the conversation, although I started it, but I mean, I won't even drag that out. But it is so enlightening for you all to take us to the roots, the spiritual roots. I mean, you could have called it just that, the spiritual roots of burlesque. Oh my God, I had no idea this was what we were in for today, and I thank you.
I thank you. I'm writing that down because that sounds like a workshop to me. And I've done a workshop with you, Lottie, and I love your teaching. How can I say this? I love the history that you gave on the workshop that I took from you. And it's funny because the workshop that we did was over on Iron Street. That tell you how
Yeah.
long ago it was. It was in one of the lofts over on Iron Street. Something about that Iron Street, Queen of Dooney. I don't know. Just saying. But and it makes me wonder. I think when I get off, I'm gonna actually do a burlesque workshop, just working out myself. But you brought stuff made it so fluently. You know what I'm saying? You made it. One thing I learned about burlesque and belly dance, because there's a difference. The difference between the two is that belly dance, you don't touch yourself. You give the illusion of touching yourself. Burlesque, you get to touch and feel and play. Belly dance, we kind of just that's the only subtle difference between the two. But belly dance is more flirty. And I'm giving you the illusion, even though I'm shaking everything. Burlesque is like, I'm gonna touch, I'm gonna feel, I'm gonna love all of this. And if you want to touch and feel, then that's my prerogative. You know what I'm saying? It's like I got the choice as to whether or not, but you can watch me. I may not want you to touch me, but you can watch me. I mean, that's the difference between the two. One is a little bit more flirty. The other one is, it's all about me, as Queen of Dooney would say. And they're both beautiful. They're both sexy. They're both, as you say, they both help you release that root chakra. And there is the art, the creativity. There's an art to it all. I say it like that for both. There's an art. And I love it when people respect the arts, give them the respect and just the beauty of just playing around. And then Juanita, he said the spirituality of burlesque. I'm like, yeah, it brings out that sensual woman side, aside that, like you said, historically, I thought that we were all just prim and proper and that we just go to church and everything. But then again, I also come from large families. So I'm like, wait a minute, y'all been doing something in there. One grandparent got 7 kids, one got 19. So I'm like, y'all doing something and y'all not doing the same old all the time in order for y'all to produce all these children. So you got to be doing something. I had a cousin. You know how we change people's titles because of their eldership. Really, he thought it was my uncle, but he's my cousin. And in his basement, I was about maybe 10 or 11. He had the most massive Playboy collection I've ever seen in my life. And if I knew what I knew now, then, baby, I would have took some of those bad boys and stuff them away and be like, oh, okay, I have a collector's item now. And like I said, the curiosity you see and you look and you're just like, okay, these, compared to what's going on now, these are natural beauties. And these women were all different shapes and all different sizes. And the breasts were big, the breasts were small, the hips were big, but they were still beautiful. How do you feel the representation that we have then affects, I guess, what's going on right now with all the the emphasis on the surgeries and the BBLs and different things of that nature?
Again,
beautiful women then. Like I said, Aunt Esther, I was shocked. I was like, damn, she was real pretty back in the day. Not to say that she was ugly, because her character she was playing always, was like, you ugly wildebeest and everything like that. I'm like, she really wasn't?
no. Yeah, and she was a blessed performer. That is how her and Red Fox met. She's doing burlesque, he's doing comedy. They're doing shows together. They got to be really good friends. And again, hey, LaWanda, I'm doing this show. They got me on, there's no one I know who can go tit for tat with me, who is my intellectual comedic equal. You are my intellectual and comedic equal. You can go with me back and forth and,
Oh, they were the original Martin Pam.
Yes.
It just came to me like, whoa, they were doing that banter like that. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I get it now. I get it now.
So they had, again, they worked together, they did these things, and they were like, it was like, wow, here we go, here we are. So yeah, it's a lot. It's so so very much. But again, with that the expression, the movements. I tell people all the time that as much as I love burlesque and the art of burlesque and how great burlesque is, I also say that the tension between burlesque and belly dance it's well earned. Burlesque, we had it coming. we had it coming, because essentially what happened was you had belly dance and you had burlesque.
Mm-hmm.
Burlesque is just a really watered down, culturally appropriated version of belly dance.
I can see that. I agree. But what I didn't like, and I think it's maybe a little bit less now, because I was told that I can't do both. And I'm sitting here like,
They lied.
I can't. And if I respect both genres and keep them, like, I would never do a fusion, just so I don't confuse people. But it was like almost told to me, like, you can't do both. And I'm just like, well, why not? Because they're two different sides for me. They're two different, just like we have our little girl, our inner child, our 7-year-old, we have our 17-year-old, we have our 27-year-old. Like, they're all different versions of you. And why can't they all be, you know, because I had a whole separate, I still have a whole separate burlesque name than I do my belly dance name. And when I perform for one, you know what I'm saying, I'm not performing under the pseudonym of the other, to keep the two separate.
Separate, which is, I mean, it's good, but they lied to you. Again, Princess Farhana does both. A lot of performers do both. A lot of performers will fuse and mix together because, again, they are both really amazing, valid art forms.
Mm-hmm.
The big separation and the tension, again, it's our fault from Burlesque Persona, was because when they began to relegate and to use blue laws and liquor laws to try to get rid of burlesque and make it difficult for burlesque performers to perform, burlesque performers, being the big marketing geniuses and capitalists that we are, was like, oh, I'm not a burlesque performer, I'm a shake dancer. And I'm gonna, or would steal the jobs that would go to a trained belly dancer. Oh, I'm an Oriental exotic dancer. And so you would put on a costume, and now you've got the dangly beads, and you've got a weight, and you've got a shimmy belt on, and now I'm an exotic. And so that job that would have gone to a trained belly dancer went to a burlesque performer. In addition to the fact that I'm an exotic, I'm very comfortable with and have no problem with my boobs being out. So now you get a 2-for-1. Oh, so she's going to do the belly dance thing because, again, if based on that time period, it was based on the male gaze. So men don't generally know the difference between a trained belly dancer and a not trained belly dancer.
Mm-hmm.
They just know that things are shimmying. So, all right, we got a 2-for. She can do the belly dancer thing. And then after the belly dancer thing, she'll come and she'll take her top off.
Yeah. Which
good. I can pay both.
Right.
Yeah, so I can only pay one. I can pay you one price and I can get 2 acts. Whereas if I get a belly dancer for 1 act and a burlesque performer for another act,
you have to pay
two. I gotta pay twice. I can pay you for one. I can technically pay you for 1 act.
Yeah, which cause a little something in the community.
Yeah, that'll cause some strife. Like she keeps, and again, in these circuits, and it wasn't just with Black burlesque, it was also with white burlesque. And you know, if you know anything, if you have ever spent time or had to deal with white burlesque or white women in general, they don't have a strong sense of what community is. And so what very often happens is they will continuously shank each other, and they are vicious. And so then they were going after the trained belly dancer, the white trained belly dancers' jobs like tenfold. So then as white belly dancers began to train up and teach their people, they were like, no, we don't cross those lines. Those broads are terrible. Because they were terrible, because everybody was trying to hustle and make that money.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We have a question, guys. Ebony.
You got a question, Ebony?
Or comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I wanted to know more about I probably came in a little late. You might have talked about Josephine Baker, but I wanted to know, what was she, a burlesque dancer or a belly dancer? Like what kind of art was she performing?
She was primarily a modern dancer.
Okay.
She is very often credited as being a burlesque dancer. She was a burlesque dancer in the sense of being a female entertainer who danced, who sang, who told jokes. So in that term, that umbrella term of burlesque, she was definitely a burlesque performer.
Okay.
She did not specifically do striptease though.
Okay. So that
but
was
she is, again, often looked at as, in terms of Black burlesque, like the mother of Black burlesque and the archetype that people go to when they think of Black burlesque.
Yes. Okay.
So I have a question, Lottie. When you were 9 years old, okay, and between 9 and you going out with your girls and really seeing and recognizing, did you do as a little girl, did you get in the mirror and do all those things? Did you, did you start doing your arms and did you play any of those roles in your privacy of your your little girl room?
I don't know. I think I was always a performer. I always danced. I danced. I had cheerleading. I had gymnastics. So I was always a performer and an entertainer
Mm-hmm.
throughout my life. It wasn't specifically that I kind of. It wasn't until I was an adult and I was like, oh, there's a thing, because again, it was a thing that you see when you're a little kid, kind of understand, but you don't know what it is. And then as an adult, it was when I was an adult and I was like, holy smokes, it's not a fever dream.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, that, Richard Pryor's biopic was not an Oscar winning movie. It was like part of, underground Black culture. You've heard about it. Somebody might know about it. A lot of people don't know about it. But it's one of those things that's like, oh yeah, I think I mentioned it and people are like, what? And I was like, yeah, it was Richard Pryor's, biopic, JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling You. Y'all didn't see that? And then people are like looking at me like, what? I'm like, it came on like Showtime. Like it was in heavy rotation, either on Showtime or HBO in like in the late 80s, the mid to late 80s. And I'm like, yeah, that was an amazing thing. And people are looking at me like, what? So again, it wasn't until I saw it again as an adult. I can say that as in college when we were performing, again, those movements, I remember feeling very glamorous and feeling very much like a showgirl, because again, because Black college, we held on to those things. So a lot of Black college dancing, especially in the 90s, was very showgirl, was very rhinestones and more sequins, lots of sequins. And, we would be like, oh, we're going to do something. We're going to do classy, y'all. We're going to do our costumes and we're going to have fringe and we're going to have gloves and we're going to do this. And that's going to be really, that's really going to shake the people up. And so we had those elements that were, again, part of the glitz and the glamour and the showgirl affect. But we didn't have, still at that point, even in like 90, 95, 96, I didn't have a vocabulary that said burlesque. It was just vintage and kind of showgirly. And so then, fast forward, I'm here doing the thing, but I don't think as a child, I didn't have really much of that. It was just mainly being a performer. I just like to entertain and have people, show people what I can do. Look, I can do a thing.
Mama Evelyn.
I just wanted to say how really relevant this conversation is for me today. I'm on the last leg of a project that I'm doing for Mama Shamaim. And it's she wanted me to decorate these vintage suitcases. And so the last one, I said, I want to put pictures, black and white pictures. I want to put pictures of Black women. And I said, but I don't want the usual, Josephine Baker, Diane Carroll. I don't want the usual. I want women we've never really heard about or don't really know about their lives. So I started just notating different TikTok videos where they would show these women of an era. And so we were talking about LaWanda. Okay, she's one I'm going to put on on the suitcase. But do you know who this is?
No.
I don't know her name. I can't tell her name right now. Wait a minute. This is the mother from A Raisin in the Sun.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, you find these old glamorous pictures of you know, Mabel King and just and a lot of them died of diabetes, y'all. I was like, okay, see, but it was just, I said, this is so relevant. And when you talk about, when you pull it up, Black burlesque on Google, they stick other people in there. I said, this is not what I asked for. I don't care if it's just one page of just us. I don't want to see a white person who has the same name. That's not who I'm looking for, you know. And the same thing when you're looking through Pinterest, it's the same thing. You know, you're not getting all of us, you're getting these other people they sprinkle in there. I said, oh, we're still here, you know, we're still white folks. We're still, come on now.
It's a challenge. Part of the challenge is that we are Google, Facebook, Instagram, specifically TikTok, is algorithm based.
Mm.
And the algorithms are written by humans. And those humans tend to favor themselves as the default. And so when you go to look for these things, the things that don't reflect themselves are often pushed down to the bottom.
Hmm.
And the thing, you know, so the thing that you're looking for is Black burlesque. But if anything, that the name of whatever it is automatically goes to the default of what the writers, the creators, is the default for them. And then everything else that is a variant falls underneath there, which is why if you go type in Black burlesque, you'll find white people first, and then Black people will begin to populate under. Same thing with again, all of them. And that's just the way the algorithms are based. They're based on, it's a specific term. I think it's digital racism, but specific. It is when they say what is beautiful, the people who are writing the algorithms are thinking about what they think is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks, but that is where it is. The interesting thing is that if you look at Google, if you're able to access Google from different countries, what is beautiful will reflect what is the dominant in that particular region.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So if you get an access to the Japanese version of Google and you type in beautiful, you'll have Japanese women.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Lottie, size of women.
Mhm.
In
They
the
said we
birth-
have 1 minute left, so I think
Here
we
we
may
are
have.
again. Oh my goodness. We need everybody to jump off and jump back on, and because Wix got some things kind of mixed up. So come back on. I'm going to close this out. We only had the 40-minute thing. Is this
This will be a retrograde thing.
retrograde?
Right.
All right. See y'all in a second.